So today on Stewart Talk, we have with us one of Toledo, Ohio's greatest shooters, ball player. If you mention the name Anthony Miracola, a lot of people have heard about him. A lot of people we gave buckets to ever since we were younger. Chico Von Camp. I'm talking about skills. I'm talking about dribble, shooting ability, eye coordination, assists, all the above. How you doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Great to have you on. Great to have you on, man. You are a person that takes skills to the next level. I mean, watching videos, watching how you perform, watching how you practice, watching how you prepare your preparation. You always, back in the day when we played against each other, used to be, different, but now you're on a whole nother level. Where did that come from when you first started playing? Did it come, or did you just gradually know over the years that I need to just have my preparation to be above the best?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, from the time I was little, I mean, I think I had good hand-eye coordination and just good, natural talent and stuff. You know, my, my dad worked with me and stuff from a young age at different, different sports and just, and I felt like I always was pretty good at whatever I tried. But yeah, I just kind of took a liking to basketball because from the time I was young, I felt like it was more challenging and, and just being a smaller and stuff, it felt like I had to, if I wanted to keep progressing and playing as I got older, I had to kind of like do more than the average person because I was so small. And
Yeah.
I think that contributed and just just being being competitive and wanting to be better and just figuring new ways to push myself and stuff like that. So
Well, how old was you when you first picked up the ball? You really started playing?
oh man, I want to say probably like around 2, 3, 4 years old, like just not anything super serious, but just playing on little baskets at the house. And then we had a hoop in my backyard at the time. Around 2, 3, 4 years old, I started just kind of at the house dribbling, shooting, messing around. Nothing real serious or structured necessarily, but
Yeah.
you know. And then
And
I think yeah, I don't know. Like my dad would help me with stuff, and he taught me a lot of stuff from the beginning. And then I think I started playing though. If I remember correct, I'd say right around 5, 6 years old, I started playing like in YMCA little leagues and stuff. But really just right from the jump, I felt like I was always a little bit better than nearly everybody, just like at a starting point, just from like naturally being athletic, talented, skilled. And and I think sometimes when it's like that, at least when you're good at something, you want to get better at it. It's fun because you're good at it. And I think I just from a young age took it and ran with it. And I just was competitive and just wanted to keep working, and I wanted to continue to be better, because I felt like like I said, I being smaller, I had to work harder than you know like I feel like a guy like me who's 5'7", 5'8" has to put in a lot more work than a guy that might be 6'5" or something like that, because I'm
yeah.
smaller. I got to be, everything is amplified. You got to be a really good dribbler, a really good shooter. You got to be quick. Everything's got to be right on point, because it just takes that much more to get on the court and to produce and all that.
Yeah, and then like you said with the dribbling, that's one thing. Like when I first ever seen you when we were younger, I noticed the dribble ability. Then we started going through the drills, the knockouts, the 21s, and then I was seeing the shooting. Then I was seeing it in the game, putting it all together. Did your dad play sports? Was your family into basketball?
Yeah. Like my dad, I think he played. I want to say freshman basketball, but he played baseball through high school and stuff. He was more into baseball, and he tried to kind of get me into baseball too. And I played all through up until high school. Really, I played baseball, football, and basketball, and I really was good at all three. But I really feel like I could have been good at all three all through high school, but I just never really focused as much on anything but basketball because I enjoyed it and I felt like it was challenging and I was good at it, and all that type of stuff. And my dad kind of, I think he wanted me to play baseball, like, and that to be my main sport. But I mean, he could
Yeah.
kind of see that I just had a passion for basketball and I was good at it, and I just kind of kept going with that.
And one thing I also do know too that goes in the family genes, y'all dedicated. Once y'all do something, y'all consistent at it. Like your dad runs, walk. I will always see him at my job. I used to drive around the Tarps bus and see him by the mall running. I'm like, damn, I just seen him a little bit ago. So he would be consistent doing it day by day. And that kind of go hand in hand with you, with your skill work, with your shooting ability. So after high school, after you went to high school, when did you start saying, I'm gonna start shooting, I'm gonna start having camps, I'm gonna start training? What did you do after high school? Because I know you had a gym, and it used to be a lot of good Grecs at the gym you was at, because they would say your name, like, we going to who with Miracola, you know. So was it just
well, I mean, I mean, I bounced around a lot of different places, like with working on my own game, and then and I started kind of working with kids, like kind of fresh out of high school, just as a side thing, you know, like a lot of people do. And yeah, I was still playing. I played at a couple smaller Division III schools. And then my goal was to get overseas and try to continue playing basketball and stuff. But like it kind of started to build up, and I started to get more and more kids that I was, you know, working with and different things. And I was at schools and parks and houses and gyms and churches and everything. And you know, and I even was, and then I ended up still continuing going to school even after the basketball thing. I was trying to finish up my degree, but I was also waiting tables. But like all this stuff just started, I started to get more and more kids, and I was like doing pretty well with it, and I enjoyed it. So I kind of just shifted my focus, like, you know, over the course of a few years in my, you know, I'd say right around when I was like 23, 24 years old, I started like thinking, man, maybe I should just try to, you know, give this more of a chance and like do it like maybe like a full, you know, full on thing. And because I was just kind of building traction with it. And then that's what I did. And then I started, you know, doing better with it. And I just kind of started saving money, and I was able to get my place. And so now I do, you know, for more than 8 years now, I've had my own gym. It's, you know, it's attached to my house and stuff. And so, yeah, and I really don't, I still work with kids a little bit, but not nearly as much as I used to, you know, ever since COVID and stuff and different things. I still travel around and do different things and blah, blah, blah. But at this point, honestly, man, I'm more so just spend time with my family, and I do a lot of shooting, and I compete in competitions with shooting and all that. And
so what was the first competition that you participated in?
Man, that's tough. Like as a kid, I mean, obviously, you know, going to camps and winning all kinds of different contests at camps, and you know, entering different free throw 3-point things. I won all, you know, through my youth and stuff. And then there was probably a period of time, I'd say like in my late teens and early 20s, where I was playing a lot and, you know, winning a lot of 3-on-3s and different leagues and tournaments and backyard competitions, all kinds of different things that I, you know, competed in. I didn't win everything, but I won a large majority of, you know, actually playing against people. And then I started, you know, as I was getting into my 20s and starting all this stuff with kids, I was shooting still. There was really never a breaking point where I didn't shoot a lot of shots on a consistent basis. You know, like I always shot basically every single day, and like just almost honestly dating back to even when I was like junior high school. I don't even know if there's really like days that I even missed without touching a basketball, at least shooting around, dribbling a little bit. Yeah, I mean, just really consistent. I always stayed really, really true to that. And as I was getting into my mid 20s, I always felt like I said from the beginning that I was like better than almost anybody. And I really, truly felt like I was better than really anybody that I ever watched or seen in person, like dribbling and shooting against people, and even just shooting around and doing shooting drills. You know, I've shot around with a lot of good shooters and watched people, and I've went to college NBA games, and I always get there early and watch guys warm up, and I would always like compare what they're doing to what I'm doing, and like even get as far as like keeping track of like what they're making and stuff and their percentage. And I just started getting to a point like where I was thinking, man, nobody is really shooting as good as I am. Like I really should try to figure something out. And I had a lot of people always tell me, man, you know, how do you know, do this? And you should be doing something, you know? And so I just started typing things in and looked into Guinness World Records, just thinking, man, maybe there's like some world records I could, you know, and I just kind of started looking into it. And then sooner or later, I registered for some, and then, you know, and then the first thing I ended up winning though was I won, and I don't even know if you're totally aware of this, but I've always been really good at basketball arcade too, like Pop-A-Shot and stuff like that. like with,
Yeah.
with smaller basketballs and bigger basketballs, whatever it is. So I entered this competition my dad heard about on the radio, and it was in Detroit, Michigan. And I went up there, and they had a bunch of people gathered for a tournament for like, it was sponsored by Jack Daniels. And it was like a, nationwide event where, you compete against a bunch of people in Detroit in a single elimination tournament. And then if you win, you advance. And so like I ended up winning a bunch of stuff, but that was the first stuff I started winning. It was pretty big because they were, I won like all these paid trips. I competed in like Detroit,
Mm.
Cleveland, Houston, Charlotte, Los Angeles, all these different things. And most of it was like Jack Daniels paid for like flights and hotel rooms for my wife and I to go. And they were like giving you free food and, like just a bunch of real crazy, outrageous stuff. They were like flipping the bill, and I kept winning, these things. Like I was like above and beyond better than every single person basically in the United States. So I won the national championship in Papa Shot, I guess. It was called Jack Daniels Small Ball. And I was like I said, it wasn't even close. Like I was just destroying these people. Angeles and Chicago and Charlotte, Cleveland, and I won all these contests there. I just kind of started snowballing, man. I just started getting to a point where people would tell me about stuff, and I would just like, even still today, like a couple days a week, I'll just spend 5-10 minutes just typing in a bunch of different social media and on like Google, Yahoo searches, like for, different shooting contests or just whatever I can find, and it's, I love competing. It's kind of like what I do now at this point. I just compete.
Guinness world record. So when did you first register for that? Because you got a couple, don't you? How many Guinness world records?
I think it started, the first one I did was in 2019. So about 4 years ago. And that was the most NBA 3-pointers in 1 minute. And I going into it, it was kind of foreign, but I'd been shooting a ton leading up to it. And then I just kind of came up with my own little training methods for it, just like I have with other things. And I just, worked my butt off for probably about a month and, got to the point where I was comfortable, and I got in touch with them and picked a date. And then I had a big crowd. I think for that, I probably had like about 50 people at the gym because it was the first time and I didn't know what I was doing. And it was all foreign to me, like I said. And, and I ended up making 31 NBA 3-pointers in 1 minute. And then, that one really took off. I think maybe just because it was the first one, it went viral and all kinds of views, and I was everywhere doing interviews and this, that, and I was Mr. Popular. But so that was the first one. And then I just, I started registering for other ones. And at this point now I have 7 official Guinness World Record titles.
Wow. Yeah. So what are your plans to continue to go after more? Is it more in your sights, or you just continue to break your own record? Because if you keep on doing it, you continue to break your own, correct?
Yeah, that is where I'm kind of at. There's a few of them like that. That first one I said I'm gonna go back and definitely beat it at some point. My hope though, from the beginning, was that other people would challenge me, and I was hoping like maybe like, people that are like well known, or even NBA players, like someone would like beat, like even just beat some of the records, because I knew that I could do better than I did. But here we are, about 4 years later, and I have 7 of them. And I think some of it's just that difficult, like to like even the 31 is not by any means as good as I could do. Like I know for a fact, because I've went through it in my gym since, and I could right now, I could go out there and make, and if I tried it 4 or 5 times, I'd make more than 31 at least a couple times, like that. So nobody ever challenged them. So yeah, at this point, I'm gonna go back and probably start to beat some of my old ones, and I have a lot of other new ones that I haven't really, that I've done and practiced, but I haven't really done officially. And I'm gonna start to hopefully, at the end of this year, 2023, I'm gonna do another one, and then 2024, I'll try to do a couple more. Just kind of slowly but surely start drilling them out, and hopefully, I'd say, maybe in about 4 or 5 years, I'll have about 20 world records, and I'll also have, beat a couple of my other ones that I wasn't really satisfied with the number that I put up initially.
Yeah.
So,
how would be able to like take your resilience and take the strategy you got into shooting into making them a better shooter? Because a lot of times now in the game is about the three ball, it's about shooting, but people are not really going to the gym and practicing on their craft shooting. They're just doing it in the game versus practicing. Like, you're taking the time, you're getting your rhythm, so you know how you shoot, so you know how the ball feels when it comes off your hand. How can players these days be able to implement that into their style to where they can be a better shooter? Because a lot of people struggle shooting the ball, and here you're
Yeah.
perfecting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the way it's going now. It's almost like shooting has become too much of a focal point because it's one of those things. It's like, if you're really good at it, that's what you should be doing. But if you're not, you should be focusing on other things that you're, but still trying to build on it. But, I think it's a good thing that everybody's shooting, but at the same time, it seems like it takes away from other aspects of what other people could be making their own strengths. It's not like every single person has to be an amazing shooter. I don't think that's really what the game is based upon, But yeah, as far as that, I mean, I think it kind of is just a thing where people, like, for me, it's just been taking it upon myself. Nobody ever told me, like I said, from the get-go, I was a better shooter than almost anybody I'd ever played with or anything. And I just, I had just a desire to become a better shooter, and I've always been really dedicated. And as I've gotten older, I've become more and more like that. And just, it's just, like shooting and doing my daily routine is like breathing. I don't really, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, like, even no matter what I have going, I'm always making sure I get my shots. And like when I go out of town, before I leave town, I always map out where I'm going to be, and I figure out, I always make sure I know I have access to a court, and I'll even call on the phone and make sure, I don't just show up and hope that I'm going to get on the court. Like, and I go through a simpler routine when I'm out of town, but like, I go as far as to, I basically do like 2-a-days shooting for however many days I'm gonna be out of town. So I'm gonna be out of town for 7 days. The 7 days leading up to that, I'll do 2-a-days. So I might make, like 1,000 shots in the morning and 1,000 shots in the evening to make up for those days I'm out of town. But even though I already make the shots, then when I get out of town, I still go do it's a simplified routine where I'll do like a 25, 30-minute thing where I make a couple hundred shots, dribble a little bit, make sure that I'm not, not losing anything just because I'm out of town on vacation or doing some sort of basketball thing or whatever it may be. But yeah, I think a lot of it's just taken upon myself. And I think that, hopefully if other people see this, they'll see, how important it is. And, I think people get too caught up in, like you were saying, and just playing and everything else. Like, but really for me, it boils down to the fundamentals. And, and from the time I was a kid, just being in the gym, working on dribbling, working on shooting, and it all translates to game situations. I think that, like even when I used to play a lot, I never considered playing in pickup games actually. Like I never like even counted it towards like anything of what I was doing on a day-to-day basis, working on my shooting and my dribbling and stuff. Like if I was, even in high school, like if I was gonna like play in a varsity game, that had nothing to do with me. I still was gonna get my dribbling in. I still was gonna get my shots in like earlier in the day or after the game or whatever it was. I never like took days off. It was like, or if I had a practice with the team, that was practice. It had nothing to do with me getting better individually.
Yeah. What do you see the state of basketball right now as we speak versus how it used to be? Do you think it's on the decline? Do you think that is just like what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's tough. I feel like there's like I'm kind of mixed on the answer because I feel like I wouldn't say it's on the decline, but I feel like it is in some aspects because I feel like the stuff that we've already touched on, like I feel like people should be doing more individually and they should be focusing more on getting better from, with skills and shooting and stuff. And I totally feel like maybe different than a lot of people, like with skill work and stuff. I feel like the stuff that I do is very efficient. I feel like people need to maybe dwell and dig deeper into what they're doing. And like, whether it's, a coach that's coaching a team or a guy that's training kids or an individual that's looking to get better at stuff. I feel like you have to work harder, but you also have to work smarter. And I think that would take the game further, because I feel like that's what I've done more than anything. I've always been very strategic in what I do. And I study, like I said, other people. I've always taken things that I've failed at, and I've always figured a way to spin it into a positive, a positive way. And like, just kind of, I've figured out ways to be more efficient. And I feel like in a matter of, like today, like for instance, I went out to the gym and I was out there for exactly an hour. Basically, it might have been like an hour and 5 minutes. And, I'm very efficient. I do some dribbling, I do some floaters, some layups, some finishes, just some simple stuff to get warmed up. And then I, jump into my shooting, and I feel like in that hour, I can get more done than the average person get done in 3 or 4 hours. I'm just totally trying to do. I have a game plan. I know, like right now, I know exactly what I'm doing the rest of the week. A lot of it is preparation. And I always, like, one of my sayings is preparation creates separation, because like the way that I prepare separates me from my competition, whether I'm playing, shooting, doing whatever I do, because I've already done more than anybody before I get to the competition or whatever it is I'm doing. If it's a game, if it's a shooting thing, like I'm always over prepared. So when I get there, I'm confident. I feel good about myself. I'm not wondering if I can do it. I know I can do it. And if somebody happens to beat me, it's because maybe something that I did wrong, or something that I didn't stick to my guns and do what I said I was going to do. Or maybe somebody just had the game of their life, or they shot better than they ever shot. And it's possible, a lot of times when you're playing in games, or you're doing shooting competitions, you don't have a second chance. I've been in a lot of single elimination formats. So, anybody's capable. Like, you might, let's just say right now, you're not anywhere near as good a shooter as me, but maybe you get hot, and I have a round where I'm not. I just have an off. It's possible. And that's why I always, really pride myself on over preparing and doing more, because I that's my fear, is I don't want somebody to, pass me up. I don't want to have that moment where, I struggle and the other guy does his best and he beats me. I've been in there. I've been in packed arenas. I've been live in situations with cameras, and I've fucked up, and it doesn't feel good, but I've always tried to take the negative things. And I still think about some of the stuff from years ago that happened to me when and I try to spin it into positive. I use it as motivation. I think if more people did things like that, I think people get too caught up in doing the same old stuff, dribbling through cones, and that's all fine and dandy. I've done it. I do it. I have my son do it all the time, but, just being creative and figuring out what works for you. Like, what works for you might not work for me, and vice versa, but you got to, the state of basketball, I don't think it's in a bad place, but I think too many people do the same stuff, and they're, they see like, they see the Golden State Warriors as the starting point of the shooting, and they think Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, are doing all this. So that's what we should do. And even the NBA teams, it's like everybody's trying to do the same thing. It's like, it's just bizarre. Like, it's like, do your own thing. Like, do what works for you. You don't have to copy. Like, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are like two of the very best shooters to ever play in the NBA, and they just happen to be on the same team. It's kind of like a coincidence. And then they figured out a way to work together, and Steve Kerr, and they got the right pieces around him, and it all kind of changed the whole projection of like what basketball is. And that's fine, because I'm into shooting and stuff, but I think too many people value what they're doing too much. Like, not every team has to be gunning 3-pointers. I think it is a good thing if that's what you're good at, but there still should be I'm sure, like, I want you to give me like what you think, if you agree with that, or you disagree, or you kind of agree.
I agree
what do
with
you
it.
think?
And then it's like, now next year we're gonna see a lot of people trying to duplicate what Denver did, because they winning. So like you said, it's like everybody is looking and watching, see what a team that does win. Okay, we're gonna do just like them when they're not sticking to their guns. And like you said, one team might get you this year. Okay, that's their year. They got you. But go back to the basics and stick with what you're doing as a team. So many trades is happening because people are trying to be like different teams. They're trying to get the players to be exact, and they're not sticking to their guns. They're not forming their own identity as a team, and it's causing now everybody is going. Everybody, don't nobody want to play with nobody, so everybody wants to get traded. Just like now, we're waiting to see where Dame gonna go. And it's like it holds everybody up, but then it don't make it like it's even playing grounds, because this team might be stacked. Okay, this not their year, so this team gonna try to come in, take the throne or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's just crazy. Do you implement?
Yeah. And it's like kind of how college is too. There's all kinds of transfers and this, that, it's like nobody sticks to like the script. Like actually Damian Lillard is, he's in the middle of it all, but I feel like personally, he's kind of like, he's a good example, but he's a bad example because he stuck it out for so long.
Yeah.
And I think it just got to a point where he's at like, he's at the back half of his career and he's still, he's probably still feels like he could lead a team to the championship, being the number 1 or 2 guy. And I feel like he just, I don't know everything that went on behind the scenes with it all, but he just seems like he's almost beyond loyal to the organization. And it just got to a point where, again, I don't know the ins and outs to both sides of the story, but it probably just got to a point where it was like a last dash effort for him to like try to win and compete because they haven't put, the right pieces around him. But, guys, he is, but I mean, it's just crazy. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying though. Like it's just guys just flip flopping team to team, and it's just chaotic. I think some of it too is just based on like this generation of guys. Like there's not like a lot of loyalty. It's almost like they're at a park and they're getting picked up by their boys and stuff, and they're trying to play with the best guys. But like there's no sort of like, I don't know. Like for me, like if I was drafted by a team, I'd want to stick there, and I'd want to like fulfill that obligation and and try to like bring a championship to that city because they believed in me and everything. But a lot of guys nowadays don't like see it that way. I guess it's weird.
Do you feel like you have to go to a big school? Do you feel like it's the school, or do you feel like it's just the player that makes the impact? They feel like, okay, I can go put the work in at a small school.
Man, it's tough. I think I think you have a better chance at a bigger school. But I think there's still a great chance at a smaller school. But I think you need to have people. I think in any situation, even at a bigger school, though, I think people need to believe in you and see what you're doing and notice it. And I really believe there's a lot of guys that could play at higher levels, whether it's high school, college, or professionally, in other countries or even in the NBA or whatever it is. But I think a lot of people don't get a fair chance, to do that because like I'm just speaking like from my behalf. Like I always felt like I could have played at a higher level at different points, but I wasn't getting a chance just because I was so small to like actually get out there and prove myself. There's nothing I could do. Like when I was in high school as a senior, I averaged 23 points a game. We won the first 23 games of the season. We were 23-1. We made it to the regionals. There was almost nothing that I could humanly do. I think I averaged 23 points and like 6 assists and a couple steals. And like I said, we were undefeated in the regular season. I think we were ranked in like maybe 5th in the state or 6th or something like that. And we were Division III, Class C in Michigan, but still. And it was like, I was first team All-State Michigan, first team All Detroit Free Press. And I played in like the All-State game with the Division I, II, III, and IV, like all the classes of Michigan. I was like basically the only guy who didn't have a Division I scholarship, but it was like, I don't know what more I could have done. I humanly couldn't have done more than I did, but I just simply didn't get a chance to play at a Division I school. And it was unfortunate, but I don't know, it just is what it is. And I just have to live with it. But I don't think I'm like the only guy. I think there's other people that maybe get overlooked or different things. And, so I feel like being at a bigger school, and I think even honestly, just being a bigger, taller guy, you get more of a chance, or a guy that can jump real high, different things like that. That's just my opinion. But again, that doesn't mean that guys that are small and go to smaller schools can't succeed. I think it's just tougher, and you need to get the right person to believe in you. And, I think that's a lot of it. And that doesn't mean it's going to happen if you're at a bigger school. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that played, at bigger schools and just didn't get a chance at the next level,
Yeah, I feel like one of my teammates, Dennis.
I don't think everybody did.
Dennis Springs used to get
Yeah.
that too with his height. They used to kind of overlook him because of his height as well. Even though he could score, even though he was a big time
Yeah,
player.
Dennis was a really good player.
What's one of the like top players you done played against? What's the one of the best players you ever done played against?
Man. Oh man. I don't know if I can narrow it down to one guy. Shit.
Well, you could say a couple if it's a couple.
Yeah. I mean, you know, in the area, like when I was growing, man, it's hard to just say one name. I don't know. Like when I played, I mean, at camps and stuff, I played against I played against a lot of guys that play in the NBA currently, like at camps and different things when I was a kid and stuff. Like, I mean, I'm not a fan of LeBron James. I played against him several times when I was in high school. So I mean, if you're gonna,
you don't like Go James?
no, I mean, I don't. I respect him, and I think he's one of the best players. You know, I mean, I think, you know, I don't think he's. I'm trying to think of how to say it. I'm just not a fan of him. Like I don't like root against him. I don't hate him or nothing, but he's just not like kind of back to the conversation we said. I feel like he just has just joined teams and joined forces, and you know, I mean, he never really just did it from the ground up. And like, you know, for me, that's kind of my mindset is like that, you know, and but I mean, I don't know how you can argue. I mean, especially the longevity, and he's taking care of his body, and he's still a productive player. But I think honestly for him, he's just a bigger, stronger guy. And he's just, you know, and he's figured out how to be successful in what he does. But I'm not going to argue with him being one of the best players, you know, in the history of the NBA. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I played against him, and yeah, the one camp I went to, I think I was a sophomore. It was a 5-star basketball camp that actually Chico Vaughn got me into at the time. And at the time, the one dude was a really good guard. I'm assuming you heard of him, Drew Lavender.
Yeah.
And he was on my team, and we beat LeBron James in the championship at the 5-star camp and won the championship of the camp.
He was another short guard too.
What's up?
I said he was another short guard too.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And he played at a bigger school and stuff, and he you know, I'm not sure if he went on to play after college, but yeah, he was a good player. That was, you know, Dennis is a really good player. That's one of the better players. I mean, I've played, you know, like in Toledo, guys, you know, like just different age brackets and stuff, like Tony Struggs and Kevin Henry, Lionel Armstead, different guys I've played with and against. And I mean, it's hard to like go on and name different people. You know, there's so many guys that you could name that were successful and that I've played with and against. And, you know, trying to think of who else. I've played with Vito Brown a few times, shot around. I don't know if you know who he is. He's playing overseas right now. Him and I are kind of buddies, and he's come to my gym and shot with me. And let me think who else. Chris Commons, he and I played in tournaments a lot together and against each other. You know, he's one of the better players for sure. You know, he played a lot of different leagues.
Beef, did you ever use the beef? Did you ever used to use that in your game and working out?
Beef, like balance, elbow, eyes on target, follow through. Yeah. I mean, it was an old Chico thing. Yeah, I still even like up to this day, like I'm making speeches different. I'll mention it to kids, or when I see someone who asks me for advice. Yeah, that's one of the basics, you know, for sure. Stuff like that. I've always gotten back to, you know, a lot of the basic stuff like that. You know, I still think that stuff in my head. Like if I'm struggling, I'll think to myself some of the old things my dad or, you know, old coaches or Chico Vaughn and different people taught me, and I'll think back to some of the, you know, because shooting to me is all about the fundamentals, the basics, stuff like that. And I still do it every day. Like today, you know, like when I shot, I took so far today, let me think here real quick. And I've told you this before, I'm not bragging, but I was 802 out of 810. So my goal was to make 800 shots. But like the first 550 shots that I made were all 2-pointers. They were anywhere from 10 to 15 feet. So that, like, to me, that's basics. Short jump shots. You know, I would look at my arc, my rotation, my release point, the angle it's coming off, my flicking my wrist, spreading my fingers, making sure my guide hand's doing what it's supposed to do. You know, all the basics. Just 150, I made 3-pointers. So that was that was most of my, I was 244 for 250 from the 3-point line. So that was where most of my misses came from. I missed 2-pointers. But most of them are makes, and I go off makes. So to me, that's like what you're saying, beef. That's fundamentals, all the different things. I start off with a little form shooting. I'm always bending, extending. Like I said, I pay attention to my release point, what my hands are doing. I always feel like less is more. Keep it simple, stupid, like stuff like that, stuff that I heard from guys that coached me, Al Peak, Chico Vaughn, my dad, stuff that I've implemented myself, just that's really the definition of me, is the fundamentals, the simplicity of shooting, keeping it simple. I want to do something that I can repeat, not only in one spot, off the dribble, going forward, stepping back, going to the side, against competition as fast as I can, is at a slower speed. I want to be able to repeat the same thing. I want the ball to do the same thing when it leaves my hands on the way to the hoop. Whether it goes in or not, I want the ball to do the same thing. I don't want it to go higher on this shot, lower on this shot. I'm really big on keeping it centered. Like if I can keep the ball centered, when I can do that with my hands, I've gotten to a point where the ball hardly ever goes left or right. So then it's just down to my depth perception. I just have to gauge, the east-west is almost out of the equation, because I've gotten so good with my shoulders, my feet, my legs, my hands, that I can keep the ball centered on the rim. I don't know if that makes sense to you. And then from there, it's just a north-south thing. I just got to keep it in the center of the basket. And my muscle memory has been trained beyond belief, that it's like, that's so easy to me. I can take a few shots, and if I'm off by a little bit, then I'll just get on a streak. Like today, let me think. Today my goal was to make 200 threes, but I kept going because I was on a streak. I think today I made 106 in a row. So I end, like I got to 200 makes, and I think at that point I was at like 90 something in a row. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to keep going to see how far I can take this today. And I ended up getting to 106. And then once I miss, I don't end on a miss. Then I made like, the next 10 shots or whatever it was to, finish it on a good note. I always make at least 10 to end it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's, to me, that's beef. It's all fundamental shooting. That's what I do that more than any human being, probably. I honestly feel like I shoot and make more shots than anybody. And that's how I've gotten to this point. And, but that was a strength of mine, and I keep building on it. And, that's where I'm at. It's fun to see yourself progress, like I said, even from the time I was little, but now it's like, I'm seeing things that I never even thought were even possible, like to that, like what I just told you, again, I'm not talking shit or bragging. It's like, that's just a routine day, I had surgery, and I've recovered, and I hadn't shot a 3-pointer for almost 2 months. The first 3-pointers I took were right, I think it was right towards the end of June. So now I think this is the beginning of my 4th week. So I've shot threes for the last 23 days now, and I picked up right where I left off. The worst that I've shot at least 200 threes. I've made at least 200 threes every day, and the worst I shot was 94% the 3-point line. So I mean, I'm at a point now where it's like, like if I average it all out, I'm right around 96 to 97% on threes, catch and shoot. Off the dribble threes, I'm more like 93, 94%, and that's like pulling up, stepping back, between the legs, behind the back, whatever it is. On 2-pointers, I'm higher than 99% on twos. And if I'm off the dribble on twos, I'm more like 95 to 96%. Free throws, 99%. And when I'm saying this is not like a slow pace. This is the ball coming to me 1, 2. On 3-pointers, sometimes I'll get it to 3 to 4 seconds if I'm doing a large quantity, or if I'm shooting deep threes, or if I'm off the dribble. But everything is fast, it's efficient, it's to the point. It's just, and I've like trained myself. I'm almost like a machine, and it's fun though. It's fun to challenge yourself and push yourself, but it's always fundamentals, stuff like that.
Yeah, man. Well, it's been great, man, talking to you, man. I appreciate you. I hope people that are watching this would take in what you said, because I believe that it'll help them as far as everything in basketball, not just with shooting, but everything. Keeping it simple, repetition, focusing on what you need to focus on.
Yeah, that's what it is.
By day.
Yep, that's what it is. it's repetition. And I feel like it's like I said, I think the best statement is do what works for you. Build your confidence. Get, you know, if you're not a shooter, you still have to shoot, because that's where the game is. You can't change the state of the game, but, and it's always a good thing to be well-rounded, I think, but, you know, in basketball and everything, and work at everything, but, you know, work at your weaknesses, but build on your strengths, what you're good at, you know, like, just like, that's what I feel like with basketball right now. More people need to focus on what they're good at, and coaches should be doing that, and teams and organizations and high schools and colleges. You should always form your game plan based on what you have. It shouldn't be like, you know, like you should assess the talent that you have on your team and try to like, you know, kind of like base it upon what you have. If you have a bunch of shooters, then shoot. But if you have like a guy who's really good in the post and he's your best option, that's where you should work your offense through. You know, if you got, it's always, you know, that's what I feel like people don't do enough. It's like, you know, hone in on one thing, you know, and like, you'll get better at other things, work on them and stuff like, but for me, you know, more than anything, I do catch and shoot stuff, but it translates, you know, I still do off the dribble things, but I think people get too caught up in wasting time. And, you know, like I said, it's efficiency, man. Like for me to do them, I told you earlier, I made 800 shots. It took me an hour, you know, and that's straight to the point, man. There's no time wasted. That includes warming up, getting loose, stretching.
And some players, like we was talking about, they implement their game after these NBA players and the other ones. Like I'm seeing a lot of people, they wasting the dribble just because they trying to do the James Harden sidestep and make the three like that instead of just catching it and going straight up.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, it's even stuff like that. Like if I'm doing step backs, I'll make 100 step backs in 6 or 7 minutes. I'm not wasting time doing all the dribbles leading up to it. I catch it, I do the step back, boom, and then right as I'm flicking my wrist to follow through, the next pass is coming to me. There's nothing. I mean, I'm conditioned beyond belief with this stuff. Like, I mean, I can shoot, you know, large quantities at a fast, you know, and there's no time wasted. I mean, I might take one dribble to lead into the step back, but I'm not going to do all that stuff. Like you said, all that extra stuff to me is just bullshit. I don't need to do it because that has nothing to do. The learning to do a step back is the ability to take the ball from the floor, get it into your shooting pocket, and shoot it. You know, you basically want to get yourself in the position that you are in a set jump shot. That's what you're trying to achieve. You know, you're pushing you're leaning your body in, you're pushing your foot, the ball, you're pulling back into a position, you're trying to get balanced, squared up, and it's that ability to do that. You know, so all the other dribbles that lead up to the step back, to me, are a complete wash. You don't need them. They're wasting your time. You know, because I see people doing that. I see people that are doing, you know, they'll have someone rebound and they'll be on a machine, you know, on videos, on social media, different things. And they're doing like 7, 8 dribbles. And then they get into the setback, then they shoot it. Then they jog back to a spot. And like, you know, over the course of 10 minutes, they might shoot 20 to 25 shots. Well, over the course of 10 minutes, I'm probably going to shoot at least 100, if not 150. You know, so it's like, the time that they spend, it's just not efficient. They're not getting to the point. You know, they can spend an hour in the gym and they might only get up, you know, 150 shots. Like I said, sometimes if I'm doing different things where I'm just only doing, I mean, sometimes I'm getting 1,200, 1,300 up in an hour, depending on if I'm shooting super fast and it's all in one spot. That's what I'm saying. It's just, you know, just because a guy spends 2 hours in the gym a day, they're automatically going to get better doing that. But it's like, I think more people need to be strategic and study what they're good at, what they need to do. You know, not everybody has to do what I do, but figure out a way to be more strategic and get to the point and be smarter and study what you need to get better at. What, you know, maybe it's a thing where, you know, in order to get playing time on the team that you're on, or in order to make the team or whatever it is, you need to do this stuff because that's what the coach is asking of you. Like, do that, but figure out ways. Like if the coach has you starting at the block, curling up to the wing and shooting that jump shot, you don't have to start at the block. I mean, maybe it's a good thing to do it a little bit, but like to me, I'd cut the distance down and I would just work on the ability to catch the ball and turn and get squared up. You following what I'm saying? Like people waste motion and they waste time running across courts and doing, you know, just get to the point and like do what it is that you're actually doing. you know, whether it's dribbling, shooting, in the post, whatever. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly what I'm doing, but figure out what you're doing and just be better at that. And I think people would see more production and more results on what they're doing if they just thought about it a little more and didn't just copy what they see everybody doing. Like, be your own person, come up with your own opinion, come up with your own ideas. Like for me, I see people doing stuff and I put my own spin on it. I figure out a way that a drill that you're doing is something that I can implement in my own way. I don't do exactly what you're doing. I do what you're doing. Maybe I liked some little parts of it, and I'll kind of figure out a way to do it efficiently, faster, get more shots up, what works for me. You know what I mean? And that's what I've always done. And I feel like that's how I've gotten to this point. And I truly, at this point, believe that I'm the best shooter that's ever shot a basketball. And it may sound cocky, and I'm sure that 99% of the people that will see this disagree with me, but I mean, that's just, at this point, I've achieved enough, and I'm not scared to shoot against anybody. It doesn't mean that I don't respect other people. There's a lot of people that I respect a lot that shoot, but I believe in myself because this is what I do. This is all I do. This is,
you live
this
it.
is my life.
Yeah, you live it.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, and it's hard for me to, like, if somebody says, oh, you think you're a better shooter than Steph Curry? Well, I never played in the NBA, so I don't have the chance to prove myself on that stage, and I most likely never will. But if you want to talk about just shooting a basketball, I've never had a problem shooting in a game and pick up games against good competition, guys that played everywhere. And if you want to boil down to just shooting a basketball, like catch and shoot off the dribble, off a machine, there's nobody you cannot tell me that Steph Curry shot 810 shots and made 802 today. I just don't believe it. You know, I'm just saying, I'm using him as an example. And that doesn't mean he's 99% of the people will say he's a better shooter than me. And that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And, but I'm just saying, I mean, if you think, you know, like I said, that's what I do every day. You know, sometimes I shoot more, and that's where I'm at. You know, I've told you, I have nothing to lie about. You know, it's, you know, I just work my balls off, and that's the results. And I believe in myself. I'm confident, and that's, you know, but I think more people could be better at things. I just don't think people, like I've been saying, they don't hone in on things. Kids copy things. You know, people need to be more creative in what they're doing and how they're thinking, and, you know, get outside of the box, go outside of the lines. You know, I'd never be where I am today if I followed everything. You know how many people told me, change your form, do this. You know, I always stuck to my guns, and I was always able to get my shot off, and I was always successful. And, you know, and I always believed in myself. And you know, maybe I had to put in more work to get where I'm at because my form wasn't picture perfect. But I'm at a point now where my form isn't perfect, but I've perfected my shot. I've perfected. I know I can repeat it. I know what I'm doing. It's like I've figured out what to do, and my brain works in a way like that where I just automatically make adjustments. And I'm always, every shot I shoot, whether I make it or not, I'm making a mental note. I'm like I keep saying, I'm strategic. I'm studying every shot I take. I'm not just out there shooting and lollygagging and, you know, and whatever. I'm like, I'm focused, man. Like there's nothing that can take, you know, and that's how I am when I compete, man. I don't go to competitions and talk to people and make friends, and I'm doing my own thing, getting loose, getting warmed up. I'm doing my routine. I'm getting comfortable. I'm getting my mind right. You know, that's how I am. I'm like beyond competitive. I'm focused. My mentality is totally different than most people. You know, like when I'm competing and doing something, I'm there to win. Like even in my workouts, like I'm out there, I'm competing with myself. It's like a whole different mindset that I'm in when I'm shooting and stuff. I'm not a nice guy. I'm out there. It's just what I'm doing, man, you know? But then when I get off the court, I'm a totally different guy, you know? So I'm just kind of trying to bring you into my world and how, you know, but I feel like if you're going to be good at anything in life, man, you know, you got to be willing to do things that other people aren't, and go above and beyond. And, you know, it's just one of those things, man. It's like you have to sacrifice. Like for me, basketball, I sacrifice to be good at it because I don't want basketball. I don't want it to be sacrificed. You know, that is the sacrifice, like the time and the effort, the blood, sweat, the tears, you know, it's it's what it is, because I don't want somebody to be better than me. I want to be the best, you know. It's just a desire within me, you know. So, but I'll quit rambling, man. I can go on and on.
No, it's been
I
great.
love-
Great, man. I'm gonna be following you, man. You gonna win and before them records, man. You gonna have all the records you going after, man. I appreciate you for spending this time, man, and giving this great advice, man.
You can do anything you set your mind to, for the most part, man. That's a lot of it. You just got to believe in it. And things don't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You know, that's what that'd be my message when I talk to kids and stuff. You got to have patience, man. There's ups and downs. Even with me, it's not like I just keep getting better every day. There's ups and downs, man. Some days I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Like in my terms of struggling, you know, you just, the other night, man, I was struggling, and I always shoot until I get to the I want to get to. And sometimes I'll end up having to shoot hundreds of extra shots to get to that point. But, you know, it's just, you know, you got to want it, man. You can't, hard to force it. You know, people got to want it, and they got to recognize it, and they got to realize it, and they got to go and grab it and take it. You know, it's what it is.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you though, man. I'll be in touch with you. Thanks again.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time, man. And but yeah, just you know, thanks a lot.
Yeah. All right.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.